Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You can find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. You can also find all my other podcasts. You can scan the QR code or go to roycollin.com. If you're looking for virtual assistants, go to va.world. My guest, he's in the USA. He's a small business owner turned energy renegade. He received a decrypted disc from a new energy research team tied to Dr. Stephen Greer. It contains decades of jaw-dropping research into zero-point energy, anti-gravity research and patents, weather control technology, which I talk a lot about on the show, and much more. He's not just sitting on it. He has created an online community of truth seekers and trailblazers and is in the world of creating ZPE technology for a wide and open source release. He's here to share a tale of discovery, suppression, and hands-on innovation. Please welcome John Rarity.
Hey, Roy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. I've heard of Stephen Greer. I've seen him on the Patrick Bet David podcast. But let's kind of learn a bit more about yourself, what you're doing, and how this landed in your lap.
Absolutely. I was attending a conference in 2022 in Santa Monica that Stephen Greer was presenting at while he was doing his documentary called The Lost Century. So he's really just talking about inventors and technologies that he's interfaced with over the last 2.5 decades. And during that time, he mentioned having an encrypted disk. He needed help decrypting. It contained thousands of documents to do with patents specifically, also articles, technical documents on technologies that covered everything from zero-point energy to anti-gravitics, weather control, medical applications. And so I approached someone I knew in his new energy team because I was part of his CE5 ambassador group on Facebook. And so I'd met someone through there that was I knew part of his new energy team. And I said, hey, why don't you guys put a reward for decryption on that or something? What can you guys do? And it sounded like such a fascinating disc. And he's like, what disc? And so you have to understand working with a bunch of volunteers, it's like some things just fall through the cracks. And so he approached Stephen Greer, got the disk. He managed to decrypt it by resetting the BIOS chip on his computer, and that somehow communicated, I guess, reset whatever timer that the decryption on a disk had. And he gave me a copy of it as a thank you, the whole thing. And so I'm sitting staring at this drive and, a little bit of paranoia, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of all of that creeps in and didn't know what to do with it. I had a small business at the time that I was, the day to day, right? The daily grind. And so anyways, about a year later, I got into it a little bit more, and that kind of led into level 1 communities getting launched.
And just from memory, because it's a while since I listened to it, was it his wife, Dave, that she died? Yeah, and something with his son as well, because of all he's doing, exposing all the information. Is that correct? Am I
Greer? No, actually, fortunately not. His wife, as far as I know, at least the last time I was there or met with him, his wife's okay. He's been able to, make it through, although he's had attacks on his life. He has, and there was a member in his team that did die, and it was cancer, and it's just out of nowhere. He got cancer as well, and this happened to them a week before they were presenting in Congress. They were doing a presentation, a closed door meeting with a whole bunch of documents that he gathered.
So, like, I've seen a lot of this. I've seen a lot of people that are coming out. So, what about yourself now? Like, that's the first thing I want to touch before we go deep into it. Like, I mean, is there many people that's putting this out? Because now you've got the files. Have others got it and they're putting it out there, or what's the status?
So the decrypted disk remained with the new energy team. Greer obviously has it. Um, it's one of those things, like I said earlier, that when you're working with volunteers and people that are constantly distracted with the day to day, it's really surprising the things that fall through the cracks. It's amazing the things that if you really look at and see what people have, it's just mind boggling. Like wow, and the reality is it just takes time. You know, if we had the ability to kind of focus on these things more, they would be able to come out. So that was one of the things that drove me to. Now I'm full time on with level one communities. You know, I understand I walked away from other things to do this, but it's that's one of the main reasons. It's to be able to bring attention to this information, to be able to review them as I get opportunity to do that, and to bring or to share with an audience that's interested in this other sources of information, like for example, the Energy from the Vacuum series that was also published. I believe it came out in the late '90s as well, and that fell off the mainstream. It's really hard to find anywhere if you do a Google search. I believe if you use Yandex, you can find maybe scattered episodes of that. But the New Energy team, which is called the Zero Point Energy Project Group, kind of a mouthful, but I just call it the group. And they have that series, and so I'm also helping share that information as well. So
Um, Like, I mean, with all the patents, stuff that, like, I see energy, especially companies come in, buy it, and park it, or else they park the person that created it. And even now, I see a lot of stuff with the cars on hydrogen and water and so many different technologies, but it's all kind of quashed. And I wonder, like, I'm not sure if you've gone kind of looking at the Tartarian Empire, but I mean, like, a lot of the stuff when we look at all the buildings around, it looks like they had the energy before, and then they just destroyed all the, especially in America. It didn't make sense. They were pretending that like these cities were just built for kind of fairs, and then they just destroyed them. But it looked like to me that they destroyed technology. Is that something that you've kind of researched and on that?
yes, partly that as well. Yeah, Tartarian Empire, Atlantis, right? Those are things that when you kind of read into this, it's really curious to see what you find. I do find that there's kind of been a rewriting of history. That's kind of my conclusion. Um, and with when I started working with the new energy team, there was a couple of folks in there or there's several folks in there that have done their own research and have their own degree of communications, I guess you could say, with extraterrestrial advisors or allies. I know that just that statement alone probably just sets people kind of like scratching their chin a little bit, um, but one of the best points of reference or evidence I could direct people to is there's a conference every year, and I think it's in Europe this year as well. It's called the Galactic Informers Conference, or GSIC, and there's a woman there by the name of Alana Danan, and she is. Are you familiar with her?
No, I haven't heard of it. No.
So she's the official, I guess you could call her the emissary. She's like an official point of contact with the Federation of Extraterrestrial Civilizations. And the Prime Minister of Israel, or the Defense Minister of Israel, alluded to this right as he was retiring. He made a public statement, which apparently he really wasn't supposed to, because there's um, there's kind of a very controlled um, release or disclosure of a lot of this stuff. And so she communicates physically with them. It isn't a channeling, or she has a physical communication with some of the people or leaders in this federation. And she did a flyover. She scheduled a flyover between the federation and an Earth-based group that has access to these technologies, that's benevolent and supportive of our civilization and disclosure. It's called the Earth Alliance, and they did a flyover. And so it's when you see that and you hear things that she reports that are confirmed by NASA, that you think, okay, maybe there's something to this. You know, so I find that fascinating, and once again to kind of relate to what you were saying about history. She wrote 3 books. One of them, which was communicated to her by one of her contacts, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, even if like it was made up, which talk about the detail, it's fascinating. Fascinating information, which she goes through on her book. So yeah, I would recommend it. Anybody that's interested in this topic.
I know I'm going on a little tangent now, but the Antarctic Treaty and like U-57 countries, a good thing. But I've seen loads of the older maps, and it's showing like ice wall and then more land outside of that, and then more again. And is that the extraterrestrial? Because just, I mean, we see they had flying machines with the Nazis. You could see the UFOs as such. Is there anything like that? Have you come across that, or is that something that's just that doesn't enter?
Yeah, well, I got involved because of was introduced to Stephen Greer's documentary called Unacknowledged. Have you heard of it? So this documentary is where he has it goes over a press conference he had in 2001, so 24 years ago, and that's what got me interested in all of this. I never even thought about ETs or aliens or spaceship ever, and I was having coffee with my insurance broker at the time. I had a small business, and he said his dad was retired Air Force intelligence. Towards the end of his career, they're sitting at the kitchen table, and he says, "Hey, guess what? There's some dead aliens at the base. There's a UFO. I've been inside of it. There's no bathroom. I don't know. He's just sort of talking about it like it's like you and I are talking about the game last weekend." And I just sort of stopped and I'm like, "So what's the punchline? Like, what do you mean?" And he's like, "No, I'm dead serious." And I was just shaking. I'm like, "Well, what?" I'm like, "So why wouldn't they tell us about this stuff? Like, why would they keep this stuff secret?" And that's naive, I guess, but like, what? I don't get it. And so he pointed me towards a documentary, Unacknowledged. Stephen Greer interviews on camera 25 whistleblowers, ranging from the National Security Agency to the CIA to the Defense Intelligence Agency. I mean, you name it. I mean, people that have gone on crash retrieval programs, people that have seen bases on the moon, via photographs. I mean, you're just like, it's just, I mean, astronauts, so from there, it just for me, I learned his protocol. It's called the CE5 protocol. And that's when you're able to use consciousness and the holographic nature of consciousness to initiate contact. And I started having experiences like physical 3D experiences of craft that just would appear, right? Like an orb would appear in the middle of the day. I was out here near in Southern California, and it was out in the desert, and it just as I started the meditation, it appeared, and then it just turned on like a light and like almost like as bright as the sun. And then it sort of started, went back to the shape it was of an egg and then disappeared, or seeing orbs appear at night and they just move and turn on and move away. Other people have seen closer craft kind of show up. So that's what got me interested in all of this and being more curious about it.
So with the weather manipulation, then what exactly? Because I mean, we're hearing all the dew and different things. So what exactly is covered in that?
So in the weather control, in the documents I've seen, they talk about applying some of Tesla's technology. In one case, an actual account of the Russians using this technology to create what he referred to, I believe, as a standing wave across the west coast of the United States, which I think resulted in a high pressure system, and he just moved up down the coast. And so, high pressure system just creates like warm air, and it sort of pushes clouds away, and you're not necessarily having any rain, for example. And then if you were to, I think a lot of this now is coming out more and more in the mainstream, quote unquote, where they're where if you're familiar with seeding programs or stratospheric injection. Yeah. So what I've learned recently is these little nanoparticles that they put out into the atmosphere, they point microwaves to those particles, and they heat them or cool them. And when they do that, it heats the moisture in the air around those particles, and they can cause moisture or that layer of the atmosphere to rise or fall, just like creating high pressure, low pressure systems. And so that's what they can do, and they can control the direction of hurricanes and different weather patterns. And it's really, it's nuts. And so I've got documentation that people could look up through our website, and they can read about it. And this was from the 70s, I think, what I've got.
It's a scary thing, and I know from the Freedom of Information, it was a guy in Wales was asking about it, and it came back from the UK, and it was basically saying, yeah, for climate change, we're blocking the sun. Like, and the thing is, with all these particles, I mean, I'm noticing that it actually hurts my eyes. Now I can see it every day. It's like it's not normal. It's not a blue sky. It's like a haze, and it reflects it. So the sun is still kind of coming through, but now it's
Yeah.
hurting your eyes. And like the problem is all the stuff that they're putting up is coming down, going on our food. Like you don't see as much wildlife as you did before. So it's scary, yes. You know, that you just get attacked when you actually mention this. That's the problem. You know, because
Yeah.
most people don't get it. So I saw a lot of the stuff with Tesla. Like, so, like, I've read books on Tesla, and it's very interesting. And no, I believe he died in a hotel room. He died poor when he should have been one of the richest men in the world. But do we know? Because like they apparently came in and took half his stuff, and I know that is this Slovakia or something, or where he's from. But there's like a museum. But do we know what happened, or has that ever been released with all his technology that they took?
To this day, all of his private research is still somewhere in the hands of, I believe it's with the Department of Defense. Greer published a document from the FBI requesting access to all of the files, and so there was kind of an admission that was taken. And so, as far as I know, no, nothing's really come out of it. But there's some brilliant researchers since that time that have duplicated his work. And again, right, what happens to their research is another good question as well. It's just, yeah, it's interesting. And I could tell you what I've learned happens to a lot of this work and why it stopped. I mean, I've learned quite a bit, as a matter of fact, through my own experience as well. So I can go into that as well if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, uh, what happens generally is a researcher or inventor, let's say, runs across an anomaly in their research where they're being able to tap into this energy, so that they start publishing information on it, whether it be zero point energy or even cold fusion. And slowly it starts turning heads. And so people that are genuinely interested in this work, they start asking questions. And so they start seeing the research and the data, and then they just like, this is incredible. So they can start digging a little deeper. At that point, they've already gotten the attention of other people, whether they're in academia or industry or government, who start approaching them and say, look, I like your research. I like to fund it, or I like your research. I like to write about it, or whatever it is. And these people I'm talking about are either professional debunkers, or they're people that are there to kind of slow down the process of research, perhaps turn their attention into something else. Or if the inventors are looking for money, and they actually take money from some of these people that are more interested in quieting this research. And that's pretty much the last thing they do, because they'll eventually, in some cases, they'll get sued by these inventors, claiming that the research isn't real, or in other ways just gets slowed down. If they file patents, the patent office literally has a program in the United States called the Invention Secrecy Act. And so these inventors get a national security order, which tells them to stop the research for national security reasons. And so there are all kinds of issues that these people run across. And me personally, I've been working with the new energy team on a prototype, and we've made some good progress. We had a consultant helping us, and this is a consultant that's worked with this technology, and he's worked with private and government organizations. And we got to a point where we needed some components that he could have helped us with, and we just never heard back. He reported that some of the components came in broken, and then other things that maybe were quote unquote slowing things down. So we realized we couldn't push it much further. We just sort of have to figure it out. We have enough information, I think, to figure it out anyways. Um, and manage the sourcing components that I think will work that are maybe better than what we have. But that's kind of the main thing. Why we think just a wide release is important, and not saying, "Hey, I'm gonna make a bunch of money on this," because that doesn't work. And and that's kind of a good segue for the consciousness aspect of all of this work, I think, and what people bring to it.
I've, with the patents, because I've seen that, I've been involved with patents with a few different people helping them and everything. And I'm convinced that all you're doing is you're putting your information out there and they're taking it off you. And if it's something else they're sharing, I mean, obviously people want to be rewarded if they've created something, but unfortunately, I think the only way to do it is open source and put it out there. And the people that appreciate what you've just done, then they can donate to you or pay you. But the way that it's with patents, like there was one guy in Poland and he had a system that energy comes in, twice comes out. And I've seen it. I'd like, and basically they started dealing with the Polish authorities and they just parked it like you've just said. And then I don't know what happened, but he got frightened and he backed off. So I got away from it. And I've heard of a few cases like that. And I think when you have something, you have to kind of do it in a dark room and then just blast it out there. That once it's out there, it's there. And unfortunately, it's a lot of money on your own part and energy and time. But I think we have to kind of rely on people going, wow, I don't have to pay X amount for a gas bill or a electricity bill when I can have this system. Yeah, I'm happy to give you so much as a donation. And I think, unfortunately, that's the way that it is because it's too dangerous.
Yeah, no, yeah, I have to agree with you. I think there is a delicate approach to that. I think trying to do this and be real vocal or whatever could slow things down or attract people that you don't want to attract. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely a lot of resistance, and what you know, I mean, the the energy group that is affiliated with Greer, was started off via Greer. He's not directly involved because we're a bunch of volunteers. So he helped organize it. He helped kind of put out the call, and then the group was set up. And there's over 100 of us now, I think, and we're in a whole bunch of countries. And so we have a website through this research group as well. And there isn't anything quiet necessarily about it, but there is some, let's just call it a smart level of respect to the kind of research we're doing. So we're not sort of publishing everything out like, hey, this is where we're at with this, and this is where we're at with this. And it's more like, this is the kind of areas we're looking at. And as soon as there's something real to report, we'll do it. And we'll do it through a whole bunch of people, like you said. And it'll be open sourced, and it'll be licensed in the public commons so that no one can take it and patent it, and people can just use it and play around with it, like you said. I mean, depending on what approach you use, but our goal is, yeah, come up with something that people can maybe even try to build in their garage if they're mechanically inclined to do so.
With like with plants, I've seen a lot of videos and with copper, they're putting the copper into the ground and the plants are growing massively and everything. But also with chembusters, like people are making, they do it with resin and different things. I've seen a few different people in different countries and they're actually able to clear the sky. Is there anything like that in it that's regarding kind of, I suppose, let's say fighting the system to kind of protect our health?
On the health side. Oh man, yeah, like, oh wow. There's one document in this drive that talks about some research that was done in the 50s. And it's also believe it's an application of what some of the stuff Tesla was doing. And people were able to use it. It's documented. Use it and heal ailments, chronic, for example, chronic bronchitis, lung issues, They were able to deal with osteoporosis. They were able to deal with, and it's an exposure to these frequencies. So it's like it's a certain frequency or set of frequencies that this machine would put out. I mean, I believe it even went documented cases that they had, I think even included like cancer, a whole bunch of other things that people experienced that would go away after this exposure or treatment. And it just, yeah, it just sort of falls to the side of in history in terms of additional research or attention. No one really talks about it as much like these things. So I think if people were to be able to go to our website, to my website, they could see all of this for themselves. They could download them and do really what they want. I think this would be an important first step, for people that aren't sure or maybe want to share this information with others. I think it's a great way to learn.
And was there anything on, because I think it was 1933 or 36, Royal Ramond Rife. So that was a frequency device machine. And basically they attacked him. They pretended they were investing in everything and just destroyed the machine. And he ended up turning to alcohol, unfortunately. But he cured all the people that he put through a test, and it was 13 or 14 people from cancer. And now people have created like the spooky too. There's a lot of different devices out there. I hear one attacking the other and everything, but like I know from people, I've got one of the spooky devices, and you can even, quantum physics take your nail and everything. But I've heard of people being cured from it. But even on my laptop, the device was being removed, and I couldn't understand. Like you have the program, and it kept disappearing, and I'm not that technical, so I got a IT guy in, and it was like Microsoft was removing it. 'Cause yeah, so it's like you're going,
Wow.
wow, these guys are really, go. So, was there anything regarding him, Royal Raymond Rife, and his technology? Because I believe even like a microscope as well, whatever he had at the time was better than something up to 2000 that he was able to see stuff because they had drawings done, and it was only later on they realized how good it was because he was actually totally accurate in whatever bugs and things like that inside the body that he was able to see. But everything that he was doing, they destroyed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. He was using frequencies, and you could even hear him. I mean, everything was like specifically targeted at the cancer cells, and then they could see the cancer cells just blowing up, just disintegrating essentially. You're right. It's very interesting. I don't know. I'm always curious how they can keep suppressing this stuff for so long. You know?
What I'm seeing is, even say with the chemtrails and things like that, people like, I don't mind it. People write comments, but you see the comments recently. I put a post on something because they were on about a parking space in Ireland, and I was like, why don't you, like a big radio station? And I said, why don't you talk about the stuff that's affecting our health and everything? And of about 80 interactions, like I think something like 30 were thumbs up. The rest were, but the comments were so nasty. I mean, if it affected me, it would have hurt, but I know it does hurt some people. So the problem
Yeah.
is there's a lot of people trying to fight this, and they can't take the abuse because is there bots? Yeah, there's a percentage of AI and bots, but there's really people out there that have been conditioned to believe what they've been programmed, and then they're just attacking someone. So then, unless somebody's surrounded with people like-minded, they kind of go, all right, there's not something wrong with me. I'm not thinking that, you have to find the people that understand and then share the ideas. And it's not necessarily like our conversation, go away and just believe what we said. You can actually get the documentation, go do your own research. And, I think we have to kind of do that instead of allowing somebody to take the abuse and just say, all right, nah, I don't want this. Because the more people that give up is why it's happening. Because the reality is, if we were running the place in the morning, you'd have free technology, free energy. Everything would be done like I believe it was in the Tartarian. I mean, just from what I can see, it's impossible to know the history books because I read so many books and I'm getting mixed react. And sometimes I come to a conclusion based on reading 10 books and then go, I know what they've been doing. But even the books that you read, it's very hard to get a book that hasn't been doctored, because they know that as well, and they're spitting on books that are exactly the information that we need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you heard of the book called "Behold a Pale Horse" by Milton Cooper? You would love it. It's phenomenal. Um, he was a Navy whistleblower. He saw a lot of documents during his towards the end of his career that just essentially led him to leave. He just left the military, and then he started slowly sharing some information. I believe he had two threats on his life. Eventually, he published a book, and it's this thing. It just circulates more, I guess, on the underground. And I strongly recommend that one because he literally publishes a manual called "Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars," and it's what you're talking about. It's about social engineering programs, and this was research that started in the 50s, and so it's just about controlling populations and everything from psyops to using certain weapons, chemical. Um, well, I don't know if you would call them kind of chemical or you would just call them microwave frequency, but a lot of the research they're doing to affect to affect behavior, stimulating the economy in a certain way, and being able to predict what happens afterwards. So yeah, I mean it's really really interesting and worth the read. I have a copy of it as well on the website. So it's all available, all that stuff. I have it there. I had I had this about 2 weeks ago. I had the hack on my site and the page was taken down. And so I reworked it and now it's like I receive contributions so that I can keep doing this work that I do through my community incubator project. And now it's one contribution. What's a simple contribution gives you access to all of it now. So it's a little simpler to use, and that's another reason why I wanted to do podcasts was to just communicate with other people and just say, look, this is what I have, and what you can have access to, so that if more things happen, then the more people are aware. Yeah.
So that's the
Uh,
thing, that because I was looking at your website doing the research for the show. It's like $20 donation gives you access to all the stuff that you've got, all the files, is it?
That's right. Yeah, all of it. And I've started doing blog posts, so I kind of dive into a few of these so people kind of know what to expect. But then additional other things that weren't given to me through Greer, like for example, Behold a Pale Horse that I received through another group. I've got an ebook that I put out that sort of talks a little bit more about the energy and using that. So yeah, absolutely, all of it. And I think as we communicate, sort of talk about this stuff, in groups like this, I think will help eventually change and like they say, turn the tide in the favor of this kind of research and yeah, helping people get their hands on this kind of stuff.
So the batteries is one that I know there's something on the batteries, and just like what I found strange is I had seen kind of older videos where they had moving sidewalks, like the scooters that they have now, but they look better. I remember even in Ireland and some places where they had the taxis coming in, they open and they just drop in a new battery and off they go, and then that all disappeared and everything. And then I'm hearing there's all different types of batteries and batteries that'll just go forever. And what exactly is the technology that the batteries is in this?
Yeah, that's a good one too. There's aluminum batteries that this came out that's listed in here. There are these other batteries that I've seen documents of. I think they call them air batteries. And so it's they don't use any sort of any sort of liquid or chemical. And they apparently seem to or did last a long time. Um, just really interesting stuff. And there's so much of it that it's like myself. I mean, I can't even go through it all, with the other things that I'm working on. So that's another reason why putting it out there, letting people dig through it, and even sharing this information. I'd be curious to see, wow, this patent ended up becoming available, and such company did this with it, and now they call it this. It's really interesting uh, work and research that they've done, like batteries and or weather research or medical research, materials research. There's one in there on gold. Um, it's a real brief article, but it talks about how you can actually create it.
Like
I think.
like the alchemist. Yeah, I've heard of that. So yeah, I mean everything's a frequency, and are they just changing the compounds? Yeah, so they're talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's been just really, really curious how this gets out there. You and I are talking about it, and then it's just growing the community and people that are already curious about this. I've learned that trying to if someone is open minded, I found it's fairly simple to show them information or evidence for them to do their own research. But I've also found that if people are already opposed to this conversation, it's pretty hard to get anywhere. And so it seems to be the thing where you just kind of work with and or communicate with people that are already interested or are aware, and then you just kind of go from there.
Because I'm curious about the thought process of people and why this is happening. And it's the way the algorithms work in social media. And most people spend a lot of time on social media. So it just reinforces their thought system because it keeps showing them that. Hence why when somebody else comes out there, like they're fully believe. And the other thing is like AI. It's like people are taking AI for granted, and I have caught it out of line so many times. And it's like the information is given and it's biased. I even had one stage where it was saying, whatever way I questioned it, it was like, oh yeah, our programs are mainly male, hence why we've had this. And I should have taken a screenshot, but I didn't. And I've even been stopped at times. The AI would stop writing to me, it didn't like it. There was different ones I've been using. And what I've learned is one, the question that you ask makes a massive difference. But two, like they are biased, so it's very hard to get a good answer. Like there's some stuff I'm 100% sure on, and yet it was keep even when I was given information, it kept pushing its own agenda, which it
Mm.
shouldn't do. So that means the programmers and like there's a lot of people then they go away and they're just taking it for granted. Or you hear people going, "Hey Alexa, blah blah blah," and they're recording it as if it's gospel. And there's so many people are believing this. But one thing you can do, I mean, I don't use Google, I Brave and stuff like that. But the one thing to do is try to look at both sides and ask a different question. Instead of saying, say, is 5G safe? Say, why is 5G not safe? And just rephrase it and you get different answers and then just look at it. And but that's the reason why when someone has a belief system, because then they go away and then get reinforced it. They go, hey, Alexa is 5G, and it'll tell them again exactly what they believe. And then they think you need to put on your tinfoil hat. And that's unfortunately the way society is. So all I say, I think instead of going on the attack mode, I have found that the best way is to go, I used to think like that too, and genuinely believed in different things, like certain things that I thought were for the benefit of us. And then I explain how I came to the conclusion, and that seems to be helping. And I'm seeing there's more and more people. And if somebody does get hurt or then finds out, then they're way more open. So it's a case of anyone out there, instead of attacking, because that's what most people are doing. There's people fighting in their own house, they're fighting in the neighborhood, they're fighting. Don't just accept that they have been pushed a different agenda to you. And it's just try to kind of come down and give them one little drop that they can take away. And eventually then they'll start opening the book. And I think that's how we're going to change this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think one really quick thing people can do at home is they can compare search results with Google and Yandex. I mean, that kind of is sort of eye opening. Yandex is a Russian search engine that was referred to me by someone that sort of worked in different projects. And they've sort of realized, hey, there's some tools that that don't censor, or and some that do, and I was surprised. It was really interesting. When I was doing a search on a quote that Elon Musk made, and I was just trying to find his tweet, and I did it on Google, and there's a lot of here the sentiment, at least at the beginning of the election here with the presidential elections, there was a lot of sentiment against Musk and against all this stuff. And so I couldn't find the link, and I went to Yandex, and it was the number one result. So that's all I would say. Like, do a search for cures for cancer on Google, and do a search for cures for cancer on Yandex. And that's another one that I think people will find very curious how the information is provided.
And I wrote a book in 2017 exposing everything, talking about charities and everything. And I was advised not to release it because I'd be whacked. And I kind of listened because of my kids. And eventually, when all this lockdown craziness happened, I could see there was way more people awake, and I was ready to release it. And all of the links and information that I had was all gone because I had information, but then I was given a reference to kind of say, hey, this isn't just me. Look at this. And obviously you could use the Wayback Machine, but the amount of people, like I get a lot of guests coming on talking about health and stuff, so many, their websites taken out and stuff removed. And it's like, these are things that are helping people. They have proof of helping people, and they're just removing it. And then you have people attacking them thinking they're wrong. Yet, you're talking about, say, Elon and whatever. Like, I think X is just demonic. All the stuff that's on that, they're pushing out really horrible stuff on X. And I don't think people should be looking at that because, the brain doesn't know what's real and what's not. And you're just looking at all these people killing each other and horrible things. Why that's promoted, I don't know. I don't understand. They take podcasts off me. I got a podcast removed on Spotify. I've got a few of them and kicked off YouTube. I got so many different things, and it's like, yet they allow that. And so when I see people that are being heavily censored or removed, it's like, okay, there's something there. And then just kind of, or even a book, like you recommended books there now, and I go in, I try to find, and they're gone. It's impossible to get them. And then you have to, there's obviously ways of getting there's some places where you can actually get the PDF free and everything. But the fact that they remove books that we know are very good, it's like, it goes so deep. Like, this is unreal, the amount that is done against us. But yet, most people are just trotting through. They don't know what's going on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. It's really interesting. I think a good thing for us to do, and something I've heard from people, that have been doing this for a while, is how do you make a difference, right? How can you change anything, right? It just seems like, and the best advice I ever received was work on yourself first, so um work on those parts of you that are maybe afraid or unwilling to let go of the system or the programming, and start changing that. And then I believe if we start working with ourselves, then slowly we can start making a change with other people. And because I think we're a lot of us are so caught up in a certain way of living and doing things day to day that we don't realize it. It's like, well, I got to pay the bills is usually the big excuse, or and it's not an excuse. I mean, I get it, but the reason life or society is mostly this way is because most of us, um, we know, and I'll use the word love in this case because that's the one that resonates the highest for me for why I do what I do, because I find it to be the most powerful energy in the world. And so I believe that most of us know what love is. Most of us have been exposed to love, but we've learned over time to stand down and to sort of like bow our heads and kind of, well, no, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that, and we start behaving in other ways. And I think that's why we see mostly society is the way it is, because most of us stand down instead of really remembering why we do what we do day to day. And so, thank you for what you do, and thank you for helping bring a voice to a lot of this work and research because that's, I believe, how we all start making a real visible change, you know?
And you're right. Actually, it comes from within, and it was kind of, yeah. I had a little knock in life being wiped out, and then kind of realizing that I myself have to kind of become my better self. And then even just seeing anything, why am I reacting like this? Why am I like that? And just taking layers off and just never leaving something be a reacting. And I starting studying sovereignty, common law, natural law, and things like that. And I realized the power that we've got. And I don't bow to anybody. I screamed at judges. I screamed at police officers, detectives. I don't tolerate it because I know they were wrong. And it's amazing how they back down, because most people think that, they've got the white coat, they've got the gown, they've got this, that they've got authority over you. They do if you allow it. And I think what you said, it comes from within, and then you send the ripple effect, between your kids and family and friends and stuff like that. They go, how come this person's having this way of life? And that then is more to a knock-on effect. Instead of somebody having a mission, I'm going to fight this. You can't fight it, because this is modern slavery. I mean, when you actually know what's really going on, we're all slaves. Like you said, people have to fight, pay, put food on the table and roof over their head. It's modern slavery. We're all slaves. People have been conditioned to think we work all our life till you're 67 or whatever it is, and then you retire and you're happy and you get your camper van and you tour the States. But that's when you're on 50 pills and you can barely move, and then yeah, and then they chuck in. Then your kids chuck you into a home and they take all your money, and that's the end of it. That doesn't sound like a good plan. So that's what we've been conditioned to do, and it's like the freedom is the most important thing. But I'd like to talk, because I want to get that myself, go into detail on it and have you back. But like just the properties of time, because I'm hearing so many different things about that as well. It's like, I mean, because I can read so much stuff, I can hear stuff, and it's very hard to know truth and not. And then I'm hearing everything is at the same time. It's just, there's so many different things that I'm hearing about time. So what exactly is this one about?
So, are you referring to our time, like where we are now in terms of society? And
Well,
is that
no, like, well, I'm not sure, because I just saw the properties of time, because there was a lot of different headings that I got, so I wasn't sure that, because sometimes people say everything is happening at the exact same time. So you might just let me know what this one is about, the properties.
Oh, that document? Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, that's a really good one. That's a real thick one. I did kind of a real skim through the properties of time, and that was some research some scientists were doing, and my sense is that they're tapping into the non-locality of consciousness, right? So the holographic nature of consciousness. And so you might be familiar with remote viewing or lucid dreaming, right? And so, for example, right, those are situations where it's even been used by the government, and there are well-known programs. So the Monroe Institute, I think, did a lot of research in that. Stanford Research Institute, and the CIA worked with them. And you essentially go into what I call the quiet mind state, so a meditative state. You just clear your mind, and then you set an intention to see something somewhere. And then the more you practice, and some people are more naturally skilled at this, you start dropping in or seeing things or receiving information. Some people might see an image, some people might actually hear words, or receive it, and then it's tested and verified. And so you start finding that it's not, the information that you're receiving is not accidental. It's very accurate. And that's why they did these programs. And Stephen Greer discusses actually having seen technology based on this research. And so apparently there's actual devices that have been developed where people can now remotely view using technology that's been created, so they can see other parts real time. So, people think they're being secretive by doing something, but if someone else wants to see what they're doing and they have this technology, they could essentially do it. Um, and so I believe that a lot of this technology evolved from that research, and perhaps, documents like that kind of go into properties of time and what it means. It's yeah. So that's another mind bender, but it's real fascinating what kind of work is out there. research and everything with consciousness and time in that example. It's fascinating.
And like you're looking to try to get like blockchain technology. I saw something about, is it Polygon that you were going to use? Is that something that you're developing for, or was it just kind of just checking what with the crypto blockchain?
Yeah, I did. I was wanting to look for creative ways to, um, to allow people to exchange value through, for example, level one communities, which is my community project. And so that's that idea is using cryptocurrency to allow people to, yeah, to essentially pull away from the centralized money control mechanisms that we have now. So I think it's a valuable tool. Yeah, Polygon is based on the Ethereum network. I love that network or platform, and I think there's a lot of potential. I do think that we need to change the way we perceive money and relate with money in society. Um, I think there needs to be something done there as well because there's been a lot. I think some programming on how we relate with it. And one example of that I would say is hoarding. So wealth accumulation through just money or investments. I think that's becoming or will become an outdated way of relating to it, or let's just call it a lower a lower vibrational approach to dealing with money. And so um, I would probably leave it at that. And when I refer to that vibration or use that word, I'm referring to energy that we're bringing into our daily life. So like if I eat food that's nutrient rich and alive and feeds me and nourishes me versus I eat food that's stale or processed or overcooked, they're going to have different effects in your system. And so if you're relating with money and value and other people in ways that are full of life and rich, I think you're going to experience a better life here. But if you're doing it in a way that's like that, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to run out of it. You're thinking like I never have enough. You're going to have a different kind of life, you know? And so and I think everyone's gonna have a choice and you can do however you want to do with it. But Charles Eisenstein has done some really good research in that, in how we relate with money and value. And he wrote a book called Sacred Economics that goes into this and I found really interesting. It's motivated my approach to how I view cryptocurrency, how we could use it, how we could create it so that we're no longer controlled or potentially controlled by central banks and all that kind of stuff. And, so
Mm. Excellent. Listen, I'm definitely, I mean, you have to give me a lot to go in. I read about 100 books a year, but I mean, I think even the documentation itself, there's so much to it. It's worth delving into. So definitely we'll need to get you back. And just, for those that listen, because sometimes people will go away and do it and then they start creating their own invention and by sharing it. But even one of the shows I do, a monthly one, we talk about the sovereignty and everything. And it's the guy talks about like the GDPR and he talks a lot about the cameras inside in the supermarkets and how they're tracking us and like even when you check out yourself. And I had a message today from on the YouTube from one of the listeners saying that Australia actually banned them. And when I checked it out, it's true. So it's the only country that's done it. But it just shows that by putting out the information, people share it, which in turn then goes, hey, we can actually do something. Because sometimes you see one person can do it. So that means the rest of us can do it. And it's like this as well. All the information is there. There'll be people that will actually go away and get it, research it, and then kind of put two and two together or put their little spin onto it and go, hey, this works. And because they're in the community, they'll start sharing it. So, like, I love what you're doing, and I understand, that getting it like a donation, $20, because it's a lot of time and effort, and it allows you to continue to do this by doing that. So, look, I'll go ahead and get it, and I'll delve deeper. And we'll get you back. And I'll also pay attention to the comments from our listeners because I'm sure some of them will do it as well. And then we'll maybe in 3 months' time, we come back and we pick a few of the subjects and we go into more detail with it. So thoroughly enjoyed it, John. You might let people know where they can find you.
that'd be fantastic. Thank you, Roy. Sure. My website is called, or else L1communities.com or L1incubator.com. And my only request really is for people to read the mission, or read our mission, and understand what, what I'm working on and focused on, and really just go from there. That's my biggest ask. And yeah, thanks again, Roy. It's been a pleasure. And I'd love to come back.
Yeah, no, because I want to touch on the construction as well, because I've worked in construction and I've also kind of was working with a guy that's doing kind of like block timber and fast build construction and stuff like that. So that's one that's of interest, but I know that could take a show in itself. So definitely we'll schedule it and we'll go through, and I'll make sure to the listeners I put all of your websites both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much.
Okay, great.
So that's all for the Awakening podcast. You'll find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. As mentioned, my 6 podcasts, including the crypto one, you'll find on roycollin.com or scan the QR code. If you're looking for a virtual assistant, go to va.world. We'd love to read your comments. Basically, everything that we said, as long as not abusive, I leave it up, even if you disagree with what we said. And until next week, take care.